Han watched as Idrenus and some of the other leaders argued about what needed to be done. Several weeks had passed, and the overflow didn't appear to be listening. Though the numbers were nowhere near as high as in the beginning, due to Queen's minions, there was still enough to wipe them out. "What would you have us do?" Idrenus shouted at the finance minister. "Your men and their constant repairs are going to bankrupt this city," he yelled back at her. "Then how about you get off on top of the wall and contribute?" She scoffed at his short-sighted mentality. Leaning against the wall, Han watched as they went back and forth like it was a daily ritual. The fact that the overflow was still going strong, even at night, was causing everyone to be on edge. Having to fight constantly, the guards were starting to become exhausted, unable to relax when their shift was over. What was causing the most worry was how the armor they were wearing seemed to wear out faster than projections estimated. Materials used in the armor were scarce, so they only had a limited supply stored for that purpose. "Idrenus, we should talk about the number of casualties there are. If this keeps up, we are going to be in danger." Sarah, the chief medical advisor, spoke up. "We are doing the best to patch them up, but they are too exhausted. The wounds they are getting seem to get more severe the longer this is going on. Based on what I am seeing, we will be in trouble soon, and I do not need to be a strategist to see this." "Enough, Idrenus. I know that you have done all that you can, and without you, we would not have lasted as long as we did." Relissa ended their squabble. Han could see that Relissa was as exhausted as everyone else. Having to mediate between everyone and trying to come up with a plan to save everyone would be mentally straining. "Master, I understand that you do not want to step in, but are you sure that this is the right thing?" Brittany asked Han, guilt on her face for doubting his intention. Han placed a hand on her head and gently stroked her hair. "Do you have doubts?" "I do not mean to question you. I apologize." She lowered her head, trying to hide her face from his. Bringing her head close, he lowered his head and pressed his lips to her hair. "There is no reason to feel bad." When she turned her face towards his, Han whispered, "I created you, so there is some of me in you and you in me. You should know that you are free to come to me with your doubts." Brittany nodded her head, giving him a shy smile and blushing from hearing him voice his heart. "Master, I do not feel that we should concern ourselves with saving these people. We already know that their fate is sealed," Anaklis answered in a harsh voice. Hearing Anaklis say that made him smile. Thinking how she sounded so cold, just like how someone would picture a snake to be like. Anaklis and Eurasia were extremely similar in their personalities, which is what he appreciated. Queen was quiet as she focused on the task that Han had given to her. Even though she had started summoning her minions since the beginning, Queen still looked pristine. "Though each of you has such differing views, I greatly appreciate how you can speak your mind," he grinned, happy to have them with him. Glancing over towards Celestra and Ha-Yun, they looked at peace with what was happening. He was surprised that they were able to take such a standoffish approach to this predicament. The way they were acting seemed less like humans and more like his creations. There were doubts that went through his mind whether this was the right thing to do. Instead of interfering, he felt that watching this until the end was important. To change the events of history just because of his whim did not feel right. "What right do we have to change a pivotal event in history?" he wondered out loud. "There is no reason to feel anything for these humans, Master. My sister is right. that their fate is sealed. If we were to save them, then we would need to look after them constantly. Horacia sneered at everyone in the council who were trying to figure out how to survive the overflow. I think they are noble in their attempt to survive even in the face of such a hopeless cause, Brittany said, resting her head on Han's chest as she held on to him. Horacia snorted at Brittany's comment. There is no reason to fight, sister. Anaclus tried to cheer up Horacia. Anaclus ran her fingers down the side of Horacia's face, brushing aside her hair. Happy that the two of them had one another, Han gracefully removed himself from Brittany and walked over to where Celestra and Ha-Yun were standing. How are the two of you doing? He asked them. Though I should be feeling bad for them, I do not. Is there something wrong with me? Celestra asked Han, her face showing confusion and worry. Han chuckled and shook his head. There is no reason to feel guilty for not feeling something. Sometimes, events happen, and to not waste energy on them is the best thing to do. He thought back to when he stood at the entrance to his bedroom. Placing a finger on her chest, just above her heart, and feeling the rising and lowering of her breathing, and the soft feeling of her breast, Han said, "What we feel is our business, and not the business of others. All you need to remember is that people may come and go, but what we are is all that matters." He cupped her cheek. I know that in the beginning, I thought that we need to save these people. But in the end, I know that they are not important. You are right. This is all that matters. Celestra placed both hands on top of his and smiled. What brought about this change? He asked her. I was thinking about my own life up until this point. There were so many things I thought were important in my life, but when I was about to be eaten by that monster during the class trip, I realized that there were so many things I thought were important that were not. There was only one thing that I truly wanted. She glanced at him and blushed, but continued. Walking around the city and seeing everyone fighting, I felt that they were fighting towards something that may or may not be important, but they are at least going towards that just like I am. Taking his hand off of her cheek, she placed it on her bosom and said, I am also fighting towards something I know is important, and something I do not want to lose. Lowering his head, Han placed his forehead onto hers and whispered, You do not have to worry about losing it, because it is already yours. He then moved his head and kissed her. When he pulled back, he smiled at how bright red her face was. Her eyes looked a little dazed, along with a large smile. Turning his head, Han looked at Ha-Yun and asked, How are the students? Ha-Yun was examining Idrenus and the others, and didn't seem to hear him. Startled by Han's sudden questions, she stammered, Yes, the students are doing fine. They were initially frightened, but after learning that the city was able to keep the monsters at bay, they calmed down a little. Some of them were concerned with how they were going to get out of the situation. What about you? He asked, wondering what caused her to be in such deep in thought. I am doing okay. There are thoughts about what will happen to us, but I try not to think about that, she said, trying to appear cheerful. We'll be okay. Just stay by my side and it will work out. He smiled. Ha-Yun blushed and appeared flustered. Not saying anything, she just nodded her head. While they are talking, how about we go get something to eat? He asked Ha-Yun and Celestra. I am not particularly hungry right now. Celestra passed on Han's invitation. I am also not, Ha-Yun was about to say, but was interrupted when Celestra nudged her. You should eat. Lately, you have been looking distracted, so this will be a good opportunity to relax. Han would also appreciate your company, Celestial added in. Looking between the two of them, Ha-Yun let out a shy smile. I am glad that you'll be joining me, Han said, offering his arm to her. She linked her arm with his, and they walked out of the central building where everyone met to talk with the priestess. Leaving the building was like entering another world. There was a mixture of relief and fear from the ongoing events with the overflow. When do you think the city will be overrun? Ha-Yun suddenly asked him. In the background, Han could hear the laughter of children, which was a strange sound to hear in a city that would be seeing its destruction soon. I think it will be in the next couple of days. Just by looking at the guards, I can see that they are being stretched beyond what they were trained for. Walking around the city, I overheard people talking about supplies for the armorers to work on when repairing the armor for the guards is getting dangerously low. Hearing the chief medical advisor talk about how many injured are coming in is letting me get the picture that someone is going to make a small mistake that will lead to something big. He saw a group of mothers shopping with their children, their faces trying to look brave in front of the young kids. They probably sense that something is going wrong, Han thought to himself. Ha-Yun noticed Han seemed to drift off and asked, "What were you thinking about?" Those mothers are trying to appear cheerful in front of their kids, and it made me wonder if they can sense the oncoming danger, he answered. You could save them, she quietly stated. Back on that monster world, you were able to kill so many. If I save them this time, what about the next? Do I just stay here for the rest of my life as some kind of overflow barrier? He glanced towards Ha-Yun's face. Ha-Yun started to say, but realized what she was asking of him. You probably never expected to be the teacher of such a cruel student, he asked, jabbing at her a little. Ha-Yun's face fell and she looked away. There's nothing cruel about you, Yi. Her voice trembled. Han stopped walking and looked at her. What is wrong? Even back on the monster continent, I feel that you are in great pain. He moved so that he was in front of her and touched her arm. There is nothing wrong. She brushed aside his concern. I did not mean to make you think that I was troubled. I'm sorry. Ha-Yun flashed him a smile to convince him that there was no issues. Han shook his head, rejecting her attempt to project that everything was fine. I do not buy that. There is obviously something wrong. If there is a way for me to help you, I will. Please, Yi. I am fine. There is nothing to worry about, she said more firmly. Seeing the way her smile was starting to crack, as she tried to hide what was happening from him, he raised his hand to her face. She flinched from his touch, but accepted it. Ha-Yun, you are precious to me. I know that we have only recently grown closer during this trip, but it does not change what you are to me. You can only say that because you do not know the whole picture. I know that you would turn away if you knew. She looked sad, as if this moment could only exist in a fantasy. There is nothing that you could have done that would change how I feel, Han assured her. Ha-Yun turned her face away from his hand and stated, I could only wish that was true, but I know who I am. At least in these moments before the city falls, I can forget about the person I am in the future. I can pretend that I am someone that could deserve someone caring like you. She continued walking in the direction they were going. Turning around, she laughed. I'm starving. We should hurry and eat something delicious. Seeing her walking away so happily was tarnished by how hopeless her expression was. He didn't know what he should do as he watched her walk away from him.